Dallas. Back in studio with the guys, and may I just start by saying a tie, yuck. But that's the way the rules go. 40-40 with the clock at 0 in overtime. JJ, take me through your thought process there in the final moments. We said you better have 2 in the huddle. Jordan Love looked like he was signaling something at the line. It gets to 1. It was not the cleanest football game on either side. In that final moment, it hung in the balance.
We are 1 second away from having a very, very different conversation at this desk right now. Because if that ball got batted up in the air and that 1 second tipped off the clock and then it falls to the ground harmlessly, a lot of harm has been done to the Green Bay Packers. So Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love escaped this with a half win and a half loss, because that is inexcusable. Because he's in shotgun, and once you get to 9, 8 seconds and you still haven't snapped the ball, you just have to go under center and go and spike the ball. Yeah. You have to know that as the quarterback. Somebody has to be saying that in your ear because the play clock hasn't wound down enough. So there's still coach to player communication going on at that point. Almost as bad as it gets for the Packers, and they get bailed out by 1 second.
Awful clock management and just awful situational football awareness by Jordan Love. And I say that because Emmanuel Wilson pulls off a 7-yard run. First down, 52 seconds on the clock. Next play, they throw a screen pass to Matthew Golden, and a great job by Trayvon Diggs. He tackles him for a loss, right? If you're Jordan Love, you feel pressure the next play, you can't throw it behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Right? Because if your running back gets tackled inbounds like he did, to JJ's point, now you're flustered, you're trying to get everybody together, and you snap the ball with 5 seconds left on the clock, and you got bailed out, to JJ's point. So we go through these scenarios in practice. We go through these, and you talk about it, 2 plays in the huddle. You have to know what you're going to call. You have to know if you're Jordan Love, you're a veteran quarterback. You cannot make that throw to the flat right here to Emmanuel Wilson, especially in zone coverage versus Dallas, because there's a good chance he's not getting out of bounds.
No timeouts.
Exactly. You cannot make that throw if you're Jordan Love.
Out of the back of the end zone, never a bad idea.
Exactly. Or even to the sideline.
Yeah.
He had the whole sideline. There was a little bit of pressure in his face, but he could have rolled out and threw that out of bounds. So awful clock management and just bad football situational awareness by Jordan Love.
Emery, when you look at the situation, I want to back up a couple more plays. I know Green Bay's not playing for the tie there, but what did you make of the play selection on the plus side of the 50, as they did have the chance to score and win?
I want to see them be a little bit more aggressive and try to challenge Dallas into making something happen. Like, hey, Dallas was like, fine, they're going to play conservative, we're going to play conservative. If you're going to force the issue, you're going to force Dallas to then change the things that they want to do, which now gives you the advantage because your defense, your receivers were having a lot of success against this secondary, against these cornerbacks, especially going deeper down the field. But a game like this exposes everything. We saw a little bit of everything about the Packers. Just from the Packers side, you saw this football team start out hot, take their foot off the gas, allow Dallas to come back into the ball game, and then they found plays here, there. They ran the ball well. They played good ball control, but then they started to give things up on the back end. Small, situational things, spatial awareness things, all of that kind of exposed itself. So now for teams moving forward, you're looking at Green Bay like, okay, well, we know they don't kind of play with that killer instinct. Yeah. And on the other side of the ball, we know there's some opportunity to get them beat. They got worn down in this ball game by Dallas. So now teams are looking at, hey, they can run the football against Green Bay as well.
Let's assess some of that and work backwards here, because interesting, at the end of the game, that leads to the tie. Again, 40-40, our final and our first tie since 2022. But when you look at it, dudes, this is a Packers defense that gave up 44 points up to this point the entire season, and they give up 40 here. Where did you see the inefficiencies on that side of the ball?
This was a Brian Schottenheimer masterclass on offense. And we talked about this pregame, right? I said if Dallas was going to have a chance, they had to have long, sustainable drives, right? They have to convert on third down. When you look at some of these drives, Moose, 14-play drive, 77 yards, ends with a touchdown. 12-play drive, 80 yards, ends with a touchdown. 11-play drive, 95 yards, ends with a touchdown. And to Emery's point, the Green Bay Packers hadn't gone up against that this year. So they started wearing down. You saw Nate Hobbs having his head down low. You saw Edgerrin Cooper, the offensive line, getting to the second level, and they're able to be physical and run the football. So I love what Brian Schottenheimer did. He took Jeff Hatley to the woodshed, if we're going to be honest about it. they stayed ahead of the chains. That was the biggest thing, right? First down, they were gaining like 6 or 7 yards. That way, they were never allowing that pass rush to really pin their ears back on 3rd and long. So I love the game plan from Brian Schottenheimer in this game.
How were they able to do that with the personnel group that they had tonight, some of their biggest stars not available?
Great question, because what happened was when Devonta Wyatt went out, that's when Dallas started really running the football against these guys consistently. You saw them just beating up Green Bay up front. And that's common sense when you're playing ball and you're looking at pass rushers. What you're going to do, take their best pass rushers and turn them into run defenders. We're going to see how much you want to stop the run. Stopping the run is about attitude and want to. And you got to want to stop the run. Dallas knew their best bet with some of the moves they made along their offensive line. Their best bet was to run downhill and not allow Dak Prescott, although the game called for it, they had to drop back a bunch of times. But mainly they wanted, hey, the less we have to drop back, the better we are. And that's what killed Green Bay in this ballgame.
If this were not the Micah Parsons Bowl, how many times would we have heard Micah Parsons' name tonight?
Maybe
right?
once
Maybe
at the
once.
end.
Yeah.
He had that, like, it's a technical sack due to NFL rules,
Correct.
but Dak Prescott got back to the line of scrimmage there. This was something that we talked about in the pregame, right? There was a lot of hype around it, but was it actually going to pay off? Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys come into this game and they say, there's one guy that we're not going to let beat us. That anybody else on the Green Bay Packers defense can beat us. Micah Parsons will not change this game. And really, he did not. And he was dealing with a back, and that sort of reared its head there in the second half of that game. So Micah, the Dallas Cowboys knew that they couldn't let him beat them, and he did not.
With this tie 40-40, we still do not know whether Jerry or Micah gets the family Bible. Up in the air as these two move forward now with 3 columns. Win, loss, and tie. Your highest scoring ties, 40-40, the second highest ever and the highest since 1964. Back in studio for more exploration with the fellas. Let's get to some of the good in this one, because I'm impressed by what Dak Prescott did with his personnel group in this one. Leaned on George Pickens, but also an amazing throw in overtime. He does throw a head scratcher that might have just been dirting it out of the back of the end zone on 3rd and goal before they take the 3. Yep. What did you make of the performance here from Dak, who I'm not saying he lacks fire ever, but you could sense that fire tonight and really wanting this.
Oh, there's no doubt. And when I know a lot of people are going to look at the Dallas Cowboys record, Dak Prescott, we talked about this off camera, how he is probably the most criticized player in the NFL, in large part because of the star that he wears on his helmet. He is playing at an MVP-like level. You go back to week 1, what he was able to do against the Philadelphia Eagles, he was single-handedly keeping the Dallas Cowboys in that game. And so I know that he doesn't have the numbers that a Josh Allen does, and we're not voting for MVP right now, but I'm talking about the level of his play and how well he is playing the quarterback position. So major kudos, of course, to Dak Prescott, who the Dallas Cowboys did not punt after about 12 and a half minutes remaining in the 3rd quarter.
Correct.
They went out there and went touchdown, 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 field goal. They win this game. Their only crime is George Pickens scoring too soon there at the end of the 4th quarter. If George Pickens somehow, takes a knee at the 1 and they can bleed off a little bit more clock, perhaps we're talking about a Dallas Cowboys regulation victory over a team that a number of folks after week 2 we're saying was the best team in the NFL.
Looking at the box score coming out of this one, it's almost stark how similar these two games were by these two quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, 31 of 40, 319, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jordan Love, 31 of 43, 337, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So a few more attempts here, dudes, but impressive stuff on the other side, too, by Jordan Love, who gives one away via fumble earlier in this game, but really settled in and delivered, including a 4th down on that overtime drive. What'd you make of his performance?
To your point, you look at the numbers, they're almost identical, and I think it comes down to both of their throws at the end of the game, right? You talked about it, Moose, in the red zone. Dak Prescott sails one out of the back of the end zone on 3rd down where they had an opportunity maybe to score a touchdown. We saw Jordan Love. We talked about his situational awareness, understanding the game and not throwing it behind the line of scrimmage, and then getting everybody on one accord to throw the ball out of the back of the end zone so you leave at least some time to kick the field goal. But really love that he answered the bell every time Dak answered it, right? We started the show, JJ, talking about there's some questions about Jordan Love, right? They paid him a boatload of money, and I would say for 8 games of what he did 2 years ago, right? We haven't seen him really ascend this Packers team, and he has the subsequent talent around him. Now, yes, Christian Watson is hurt, But when you got a guy like Josh Jacobs, Romeo Doubs, you draft a receiver for the first time in forever in the first round, right? You pay the offensive line out. A few people were out. You have all the weapons at your disposal. So I was wondering, could he lead this team if it became a shootout game? And he did, essentially, besides that one mistake at the end. So kudos to him for having, I would say, a really good game for majority of the game. Just would have loved to see him finish better.
Emery, how do these teams process a tie? It's always interesting. You know how to feel off a win. You know how to feel off a loss. Do both teams walk away from this sort of the competitors that they are feeling like a loss, but it just doesn't represent that on the win-loss?
No, and I'm glad you asked that question, Joe, because this reminds me so much of the 1968 Harvard versus Yale game.
Of course it does.
Yale was up to an early lead. Harvard came back and tied the game, and the newspaper headline read the next day, Harvard beats Yale 29-29, because all accounts, Harvard came back and really beat it. So I think the Cowboys won this ball game in their mind. You know, because how they fought through adversity, how they came back, how it ended under some, hey, this could have been, you know, if, to your point, if the ball bounces high a half second more, the game is over.
Fact.
This was a Cowboys victory, in my opinion, based on how it's perceived, because we saw a great team football. We saw Dak Prescott spread the ball around. Who stepped up? Who's going to step up for CeeDee Lamb? George Pickens stepped up. Kevontae Turpin stepped up. They ran the football extremely well tonight. So defensively, we saw them make plays. We saw James Houston become Michael Parsons. So this was, to me, this was more about the Cowboys winning this tie and Green Bay losing this tie. So I feel like this was a Cowboy win and more of a Green Bay loss.
Win, lose, or draw, and in this case, the latter. It is a draw, 40-40. The Cowboys and the Packers knotted in history. A look at the Cowboys by location this season, 1-0-1 at home, posting 40 per game. They're loving the good graces on the road. Got to get something sorted, but this Sunday nighter ends early Monday morning in a 40-40 tie.